A verdict of obedience of the Sharia court on a disobedient Muslim wife. This is a love story that was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. All characters in this book are fictitious and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author except by a reviewer who may quote brief paragraphs in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This story is about 3 Muslim girls who were subjected to gross injustice, severe violence, and abhorrent persecution by Muslim men, religious leaders, Sharia court judges, and police officers in the Islamic community and the religion of Islam and its misogynistic, hateful, and abusive teachings against women's rights, which are innumerable. For example, beating of women, child marriage, circumcision of the private parts of small Muslim girls, which is known as female genital mutilation or FGM, slaying them in honor killings, inequality between males and females in inheritance, testimony in court, marriage, divorce, men's guardianship over women, controlling their lives and destinies as if they are minors, physically handicapped or mentally retarded, and forcing them to wear the hijab, niqab, or the humiliating burqa as if they are scary ghosts. Muslim men are allowed by the Quran to have sex or rather rape without the need for marriage captive women of war such as wives, daughters, sisters, and even mothers of the defeated enemies who are called unclean infidels such as Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, feminists, etc. Islam forbids a Muslim woman to become a president of a country or a boss at work or a judge in court, and she is strictly forbidden to lead men or women in prayer as an imama. Moreover, the Prophet Muhammad said the woman is an unclean creature just like a dog and a donkey, and therefore as a defiled being she annuls the man's prayer if she passes in front of him while he is praying. The Quran likens the woman to the human feces which spoils the man's ablution or religious cleansing. Many Islamic countries prevent women from going to school and work, and they are not permitted to drive cars, bicycles, or motorbikes, and they are not allowed to go to gymnastics, beaches, or swimming pools, cinemas, or theaters. And none of them is allowed to leave the house without her husband or with the muharram man the woman is forbidden to marry, such as her father or brother. They are forbidden to practice any kind of sports, such as soccer, basketball, volleyball, and tennis, and they are not allowed to go to gymnastics, beaches, or swimming pools, cinemas, or theaters, or act as heroines in movies or actors in the stage and plays, or compete in beauty contests such Miss World or Miss Universe. They are also not allowed to fall in love with men before marriage or choose their future husbands or life partners. The story is about the 3 innocent Muslim girls, namely Intisar, Firdaus, and Mona. Chapter 54. The new gang leader continues to implement the second evil plot. There is no day in all the days of his evil life when the devil incarnate Mr. Osman al-Taib was so angry and his corrupt heart worried more than the day he was denied bail from prison. He proposed a bail of 20 billion Sudanese pounds, but his request was rejected. Prison authorities told him he would never be released from pretrial detention until his trial was over. On the same day, the authority informed him that he would be transferred to Khartoum City for interrogation by the police, accusing him of his involvement in the murder of his 4th wife, Firdaus Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. In addition, his lawyer told him that the last session of the trial of the first innocent girl, Mona Salah el-Din, is scheduled to take place in 2 weeks. For this reason, his transfer to the capital city was postponed until the relevant trial was completed. His lawyer expected that his anticipated verdict in the first trial of the first innocent girl Mona, who was kidnapped and raped at the age of 16 by the monstrous gang of Al-Wash, would be lighter compared to his expected sentence in the killing of his 4th wife, the second innocent girl, the late Firdaus, who was 15 years old when he allegedly kidnapped and raped her to death. Another factor that contributed to disturbing the heart and mind of the evil old man was the flight of the alleged disobedient Muslim wife, Intisar, the third innocent girl, who was 17 years old when she fled from the verdict of obedience. On the same day, the leader of his spies, the dangerous man, Mr. Tia ibn Koko, Wad al-Shaitan, and the two criminals, Yeager and Nisar, returned from the precise searches that lasted for 1 month for the fugitive Muslim wife, Intisar. In the cities of Khartoum, Wad Madani, Kassala, New Halfa, Port Sudan, and their environs. They told him that all their efforts were in vain. The last coincidence, which also contributed to the increase in anger in the wicked heart of the rapist and murderer Mr. Osman al-Taib, was the release of the two friends, Sami and Silla, from prison on the same day. And to quell his anger and take revenge on his enemies, the evil old man examined his eldest son, Mustafa Osman al-Taib, the so-called legal husband of the fugitive and rebel wife, Hassan Majub al-Hilali, the great spy Mr. Tia Koko, and his other two thugs, for a quick decision to be made. So that day Satan, the leader of demons, sat with his chief of spies and his other evil men in his hospital room and began to discuss the serious matter. "I don't care how you're going to do it," the angry old man shouted while his contemptible mouth is foaming like an angry camel. "You have to dig up the earth and take out that dirty bitch Intisar and hand her over to her lawful husband Hassan. I hold all of you guys responsible for her escape. The only way to find her will be through Sami and Sella," says his eldest son Mustafa. "Chief Tia says that my spies, Yeager and Eagle, are still standing there in front of their lair, watching them. I no longer trust you and your spies. Didn't that damned poor whore Intisar get out of her house in front of you and your spies? My dear father," says Mustafa, "please give him another chance. I know Mr. Tia is a trustworthy man. He has done many spy jobs for me before and he did them well. I will give him one last chance only if he can provide us with more capable criminal men to work with." Spy Tia says, "This of course I can do." He quickly added that I heard that Mr. Abu Shakura Wad al-Kalb had recently been released from prison. I know he specializes in this kind of spying work. This is an excellent idea. Go to this Abu Shakura and add him to your spies, Mustafa says. No, sir. Mr. Abu Shakura, the son of a dog, is not too small to work under another ringleader or employer. He is a dangerous gang leader himself and likes to do his work with his dangerous men. It's up to you. Let him start his spying business today. Listen to me, guys, all of you here, before you leave. The evil old man says, I would rather like you divide the job between you, Mr. Tia, as a grand spy and that gang leader Mr. Abu Shakura. I know that my son Sammy and his friend Sulla have brains because they are university graduates and not illiterate like you guys. Therefore, they will try to oversmart you and deceive you again. Each spy team must deal with one of them. This is an excellent idea. It will make work easier for us. I will deal with Sammy and give Sulla to Abu Shakura. Excellent plan, Chief Tia. Now this is what you should do if you find that evil bitch Intisar. I want you to deliver her to her legal Muslim husband, Hassan Majub al-Hilali, at the African Hotel in Kassala City. Why should the groom, Hassan, spend his honeymoon with his disobedient bride, Intisar, in that hotel with pleasure, my father? The son asks. That is the hotel where I spent my honeymoon with my 13-year-old bride, Rasha. What a great time I had with that hot, beautiful, and sexy underage girl. Then the dirty old man, the pedophile, began to weep when he remembered his honeymoon with his former child bride, the late underage girl, Rasha. My father, says Mustafa impatiently, can you please forget your previous honeymoon with your late wife Rasha and tell us what we have to do after we arrest the fugitive disobedient wife Intisar, the spouse of this husband Hassan? Hey Hassan, get ready and act like a man. Once that rebellious girl has been brought to you, do your job as all husbands do with their wives on their honeymoon. After all, no husband will ever be convicted or imprisoned for raping his wife, says the evil old man. Mustafa says Hassan is not a little boy. As a groom, he knows what to do with his bride, Intisar, when she is brought to him in his hotel room. Don't worry, Uncle Osman. I will not disappoint you. I will have sex with her even if I have to rape her. "You are a great man, my dear son Hassan," says Iblis, the leader of the second gang of demons. "Now, Mr. Tia, hurry up, bring Mr. Abu Shakura, and resume your spy work," Mustafa says. In less than an hour, the grand spy Abu Shakura, Wad al-Kalb, and his dangerous men will be in their watchtower, says the leader of the first gang of spies. "Wait a minute, my brave comrades," says the evil old man anxiously. "I have something very important that I would like to add to our flawless plan. I prefer that the groom Hassan is not alone in his hotel room with his disobedient bride Intisar. He must have someone with him in case that filthy bitch resists him, or she might try to kill him as her evil sister did to me twice during our honeymoon at the 5-star Hilton International Hotel in Khartoum City." "But my father," says Mustafa worriedly, "that no man in the whole world will agree to the presence of another man in his hotel room during their honeymoon." "Why shouldn't Hassan do that? A man was with me in my hotel room while I was trying to have sex with my fourth legal wife, Firdos. If I hadn't done that, I would have been dead and gone to my grave forever by the time now. Twice she tried to kill me, but my huge bodyguard Haroun saved me from her evil twice. He was hiding under my bed, and whenever he felt that she was killing me, he would jump out from under the bed and hit her in the head with his big stick. But, father, who in the whole world would agree to do this lewd act for another man? Let's ignore the question of ethics." The rapist and murderer old man says, "For my own safety, I am ready to do the impossible. Even if the accursed Satan offered his hands to protect my life, I would gladly hire him." "Well, father, tell me who can handle such a task. I mean to say, what decent man would agree to watch a husband and wife naked and having sex like dogs do in the street? This is worse than watching porn movie on the internet. Son, give me a minute." Then the old man became thoughtful. Each pair of eyes stared at his evil brain. Suddenly he blew a whistle and smiled happily as if he had discovered a new planet or won the American lottery visa. He shouted like Archimedes, "I found it. I found it. I know who's a good kicker at this kind of job. He is the only man who can agree to do this immoral act because he worships women. Fada Karer, your father's secretary." But Uncle Osman interrupts Hassan secretly. "It is very dangerous to allow Mr. Fadakarer to take a full look at the sexy naked body of my legal wife, Intisar. As you know, he is a notorious womanizer. He might try to rape her before me. Are you not a man, and you have a big dick and masculine power? But still, he might try to rape her while I'm asleep. Just tell him if he tries to do anything like that to your lawful wife Intisar, the mighty man Mr. Osman al-Taib will send his dangerous men and order them to cut off his cock from his unclean body and burn it with fire, and thus deprive him of his weapon of war against the women he worships more than he worships God." "Great idea, father. I think it will keep Fada and his dick under control," says Mustafa, laughing. "Now my good fellows, go and put my flawless plan to work, and I pray to Almighty God and ask his holy prophet Muhammad to be with you all. And they send their mighty angels to protect you, grant you success, and help you against your adulterous enemies. Amen. Lord of the world," say the three criminals in unison. Meanwhile, Sammy and Sulla were released from prison at noon on the same day. They both spent a full month in Gedaref prison. From prison, the two friends went straight to the house of the lawyer Sulla's family. Their main concern is knowing the safety of Intisar. They asked the family if she had called them on the phone in their absence and told them about her hiding place. Sulla's mother said that Intisar phoned several times while they were locked up in prison. She said further that Intisar told her that she lives with a Coptic family in Khartoum City, but she did not give her any phone number or any address to write a letter to her. However, she promised to call again after Sulla and Sammy were released. The two friends became very happy when they learned that Intisar had found shelter and a family to take care of her, even though she had not enough money or any relatives or friends in that big cosmopolitan city of Sudan. The next thing the two friends have to do is visit Sulla's second beloved girlfriend Mona at her home. The friends realize that they have been followed by some spies since they left the prison. Since they know that the first innocent girl, Mona, will not be targeted by their enemies, they decide to take a risk and visit her and tell her the good news about the safety of her beloved friend, Intisar, and their release from prison. In the meantime, the newly appointed gang leader Abu Shakura and 3 of his thugs arrived at Sulah's house less than an hour after the time they were recruited. 2 of them crossed the road and stopped near the house. Not far from them, the leader of the first gang, Tia, and his 2 spies, Jaeger and Nisar, are sitting in a small restaurant and watching the house in question. The leader of the new gang, Abu Shakura, and his 3 men were given the descriptions of Sami, Sulah, and Intisar. Yet they did not see any of them. Mustafa told Abu Shakura that Intisar is a young and beautiful girl of 17 years of age. The only way to reach her is through Sami and Sulah. Most likely, these 2 bad friends, once they are released from prison, will go to meet her at her hideout. So, the 2 spy teams are following the 2 friends Sulah and Sami and watching them very carefully. Before we continue our narration of this interesting and painful account of the 3 innocent Muslim girls, Intisar, Firdaus, and Mona, who were subjected to gross injustice, severe violence, and abhorrent persecutions as a result of the hostile and misogynistic teachings of Islam, we need to say a word or 2 about the newly appointed gang leader. Mr. Abu Shakura Wad al-Kalb is a tall, big, strong, and very dangerous criminal. His lips, nose, ears, mouth, head, arms, hands, and legs are also large. The only small things about his massive body are his red eyes. His lips clap when he speaks. He snores with his flat nose while he is wide awake during the day, which is why his gang comrades nicknamed him Abu Shakura, or the father of snoring. His last name and dog friendliness have a long story behind him. He is an illegitimate son without a known father. However, there is a rumor in which all his relatives, neighbors, and evil companions believe that his real biological father is not a human but a dog. According to this widely believed rumor, when his biological mother Kultumia was just a 14-year-old teenage girl, she was attacked and raped by a large stray dog. Those who claimed to have seen her when she was raped by this huge stray brute said that the raped girl and the dog that fucked her in the street and in broad daylight remained glued together through the dog's swollen cock inside the abused girl's pussy long after the rape. In other words, her genitals and the dog's penis remained attached to each other until the brute's swollen cock became its normal size, and thus the raped girl's pussy was able to get rid of it. Another version of this rare rape incident says that this attachment and adhesion continued between the 2 despite people hitting the scabies dog until its swollen penis returned to its normal size and released the raped girl's female genitalia. Despite that release, the stray dog ejaculated his semen into her womb and made her pregnant with a half-human, half-dog creature. This strange creature is Abu Shakura Wad al-Kalb. It is difficult to know whether this story is true or not, but many people believe in it, even Abu Shakura himself and the police authority. This strong belief arose from the fact that the half-human, half-animal creature has a dog-like face and mouth. In addition, his mother does not know to this day who the biological father of her only son is. Nowadays, his mother works as a prostitute in a brothel and bar, a seller of local liquor and drugs, and a thief in the same den as her own drunkenness. In the near future, we will meet his biological mother, Kultumia, as we tell our story. Abu Shakura, like his mother, is a sexual predator and practices all kinds of sexual perversion such as rape, sodomy, sexual abuse of children, and often engages in bestiality with animals such as dogs, goats, ewes, sheep, chickens, pigeons, and sometimes with cows, donkeys, mules, and camels, in addition to having intercourse with the corpses of dead girls and women, or having necrophiliac sex. In fact, his last imprisonment occurred because he was accused of exhuming from the grave a beautiful 15-year-old teenage girl of a wealthy Arab family and raping her dead corpse. The girl died by committing suicide drinking poison because she became pregnant outside the legal Islamic marriage with what is called a wad haram, or an illegitimate child. Police investigations found that her Sudanese Arab mother forced her to drink poison when she discovered the lover of her daughter, Al-Jalila al-Hira, is one of the so-called Black African Sudanese who was originally from a tribe in Darfur region in western Sudan. The Arab girl became pregnant out of the marriage bond as a result of practicing adultery with her African lover, who is the son of the neighbors. The racist mother preferred to kill her Arab daughter rather than allow her to marry her African lover, whom she calls a nigger or a zongi slave who was black like a raven. However, neither the Gaddarif police nor the public prosecutor in the criminal court were able to provide tangible evidence to prove the abhorrent sexual act of Abu Shakura, who committed necrophilia with the dead body of the exhumed Arab girl who committed suicide, whom he took out of her grave in the middle of the night, committed adultery with her, and abused the sanctity of her pregnant body until early morning. He was acquitted of that charge of prohibited and abhorrent sex in all parts of the world. At any rate, on that very day, the so-called Ibn al-Kalb Abu Shakura was the first of the spies to see the two friends who had been released from prison leaving Salah's house. He also saw them when they stopped a taxi and got on it. The taxi left immediately. So, Abu Shakura has no time to wait for the other thugs. He started his car and sped after Salah and Sammy's taxi. The other two spies waved for another taxi and went behind the car of their ringleader, Abu Shakura Wad al-Kalb. Chief Tia and his two spies are the last to follow behind the three cars. They are very upset about their car situation. They asked their taxi driver to overtake the other two cars of their rival spies. After 10 minutes of a crazy car race, the taxi driver of Tia was able to put his car between Abu Shakura's car and the taxi of his legs. The dog's alleged son will not allow Tia and his spies to walk in the front of his car. Boss Tia, the son of Koko Wad al-Shaitan, knew of this and then accepted his half-victory. After another 20 minutes of crazy driving, the car race ended when Sammy and Salah stopped their taxi and got off in front of the house of the first innocent girl, Mona. They are well aware of the many spy cars following them. Despite this knowledge, they are not interested in them. They know that these spies are looking for the so-called disobedient Muslim wife Intisar, who is legally required to deport her through the policemen to the house of obedience to her alleged Muslim husband, Hassan. According to the obedience verdict issued a month ago by the judge of the Sharia court, which is against Intisar, not Mona. With such confidence in their hearts, the two friends got out of their taxi, crossed the road, stood in front of the outer door, and proceeded to ring the bell. Meanwhile, the two groups of spies spread out outside the house as if they were policemen about to attack a dangerous criminal's hiding place. Abu Shakura followed his previous method by sending two of his men to stand near the house while he and another spy sat inside their private car. Mr. Tia and his two spies crossed the road and entered a nearby restaurant. They know their four new spy rivals are privileged because they have their own car. After a few minutes, the beautiful beloved girlfriend Mona came out and embraced her handsome boyfriend, Salah, while she was smiling and crying at the same time, and her two eyes shed tears of joy. She is very happy to know about the release of her dear lover from unfair imprisonment. She also shook hands with his friend Sammy and congratulated him on his release. Abu Shakura's small red eyes opened wide and his big yellow teeth moved with an ugly smile-like gesture when he saw Mona. She perfectly fulfilled the descriptions of the rebellious wife on the run Intisar. She is young, beautiful, and a teenager. She looks exactly 17 years old, like the age of Intisar. As a matter of fact, the first innocent girl, Mona, was 16 years old when she was kidnapped and raped by the gang of the devil incarnate Al-Waj al-Ajabo, while the second innocent girl, Firdaus, was 15 years old when she was beaten and raped to death by the old man, Osman al-Tayyib, who is another devil in human form. Therefore, the new gang leader jumped to the hasty conclusion that Mona is Intisar. Accordingly, the last step came for him, as the hideout of the wanted disobedient Muslim wife was discovered very quickly. Before he could discuss the matter with his men, he saw the girl who was supposed to be Intisar following Sulla and Sammy and entered with them into the restaurant where the old ringleader and his two spies were sitting and watching them. Boss Tia, the son of Coco, and his thugs Jaeger and Nisa realize the intense rivalry they have with their rival spies. They are very eager to get their hands on the fugitive wife Intisar before the other spies catch her. Moreover, they have another privilege that Abu Shakura and his men do not enjoy, as they have seen the wanted wife, Intisar, face to face in the Sharia court and therefore do not need anyone to describe her to them. Then the new leader, Abu Shakura, waved his hand to his other two men and invited them to join him in his car. Dosa and Duca quickly cut the road with the distinction of two professional hijackers. They moved quickly, as if they were two bats flying at full speed in the dark night. Then they got themselves into their leader's private car through the back doors. Abu Shakura's criminal mind has already worked out a plan to kidnap the beautiful girl. His only concern is not to allow Tia and his spies to get their hands on the wanted bride before them. He learned that the wealthy son, Mustafa, and his imprisoned rich father, Osman al-Tayyib, have promised a huge sum of money to the group that first finds the rebellious Muslim bride and successfully delivers her to her legal groom in the African hotel in Kassala City. Listen, boys, Abu Shakura says in a hoarse voice like a ghoul or an ogre. The birds brought us to the nest very quickly. While he is talking, his lips clap and his nose snores as if he is asleep. The wanted beautiful dove has been found. Most likely she will not fly with the two male birds, but will return to her nest and hide again. Tia, the bastard son of the infamous murderer Coco, the firstborn of the devil who was sentenced to life in Al-Gadarif prison, and his two deadly spies, Rat and Eagle, should not catch her in front of us. I'm sure they wouldn't dare touch her while she was at the restaurant with her two male companions and in the presence of several strangers. I will move the private car and keep it near the dove's nest. When she comes out, you have to jump on her from behind, close her small mouth, and carry her to the car. Don't allow her to scream. I want a fast and flawless job. But something needs to be done before the dove appears. Doka, you're good with a slingshot. I want you to break and put out all those street lamps near the dove's nest. This area should be completely darkened. I don't want any police interference or other people's attention. Is this plan clear? It's a crystal clear plan, our great chief, say the three criminals in unison. Doka, move quickly and do what I told you to do. Obey you, our boss. The aforementioned ugly black man Duca jumped out of the back seat and crossed the road. Within a few minutes he made the area as dark as his heart and color. Then he returned to the private car and obtained the approval of his leader. Well done, Doka, Abu Shakura says while snoring his big nose loudly. Now I will tell each of you what to do. Dosa will handle the driving. Doka and Borma will come from behind and snatch the dove. You both have to be nice to her. No sprained hands or broken legs. The beautiful sparrow looks very tender and delicate. Never touch her neck. You guys have rough hands and would break her neck if you touched her. I will not forgive either of you if such a fatal accident were to happen to her. I will send him to his grave before her family buries her murdered body. So, you two, Burma and Duca, should be very careful while abducting the sweet bird. When the lovely bird is in the nest of this car, I will put a large cloth of a turban over her mouth and tie her legs and hands with a strong rope. Dosa will drive the car towards the highway. We will go to the city of Kassala, and we must arrive tonight at the African hotel. This is where the rebellious bride will spend her first honeymoon night with her groom, as he must fuck her in her virgin pussy and rob her virginity. And then she will submit to him and be an obedient Muslim wife and allow him to fuck her day and night, and she will never run away from him again. Once we hit the highway, I'll switch seats with Dosa and then fly to our final destination. Our car should land in Kassala City in less than usual time. Is this plan clear, guys? Yes, oh my great boss, say the three thugs in unison. Then Abu Shakura took a turn and stopped the private car near the house of the first innocent girl. Half an hour later, Scylla and Mona left the restaurant, holding hands, followed by Sammy. The good citizens crossed the road and started walking slowly toward Mona's house. After a few minutes, Scylla and Sammy stopped a taxi, shook hands with Mona, said goodbye, and left. The first innocent girl stood for a few minutes waving at them. A few minutes later, she saw another taxi speeding behind her friend's taxi. She was not surprised to see it because Scylla and Sammy told her that some spies have been following them since their release and departure from prison today. Chapter 55. A kidnapped bride taken to her groom for their honeymoon. As soon as the taxi of Habib Intisar and her Habiba disappeared from her sight, the first innocent girl Mona turned towards her house and began walking slowly back to her outer door. Her mind is occupied with many thoughts and her heart is filled with a mixture of ambivalent feelings of happiness and anxiety. She was surprised when her eyes saw the completely dark area in front of her house. She can see lights everywhere except near where she lives. She became reluctant to enter the dark area. She can see no one except for a beautiful Mercedes parked near her house. She wondered why the car she didn't see was there when she left her house. For a few minutes, the horrific memories of her previous abduction and vicious rape by Al-Washa's gang flashed like a powerful earthquake or the molten lava of an erupting volcano in her frightened mind. As a result of this terror, she asked herself, is there anyone in that car waiting to attack and kidnap her? Her lover told her that the spies don't care about her, but they are looking for the so-called runaway rebellious wife, Intisar. Moreover, if there is any such possibility, Scylla and Sammy would not take such a risk and come to her house and bring spies to kidnap her. So, the first innocent girl, Mona, encouraged herself with these positive thoughts and entered the dark zone. In the meantime, the eldest son Mustafa will come as his usual daily habit since his father Osman Al-Tayyib was transferred from the haunted barracks number 13 in prison to the hospital to visit him at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and leave at 9 o'clock in the evening. On that day, while leaving the hospital, the son of the evil old man received a phone call on his mobile phone from the new gang leader, Abu Shakura Wad Al-Kalb. Hello, Mr. Mustafa. Who is this? I am Mr. Abu Shakura, the new grand spy. Yes, Mr. Abu Shakura. Mustafa says calmly. Please wait, sir. The eldest continued to speak very calmly. I can't talk to you here. Leave the line open. Do not break the line. Mustafa then rushed to the toilet and began to inquire about the new criminal leader. What is your problem, Mr. Abu Shakura? What kind of pigeon are you talking about? Which girl? Intisar. Where did you find her? Are you sure she is the runaway wife of Hassan Majib al-Halali? Bravo, Mr. Abu Shakura. This is a quick and excellent work. You have proven that you are better than Mr. Tia and his spies. Listen, man, you have to take her to the African Hotel in Kassala City tonight. Her groom Hassan and I will get there before you, book the hotel and meet you later with the kidnapped bride. Give me an hour. I will go to the house of the handsome groom, Hassan, and drive him immediately to Kassala City for the honeymoon with his beautiful bride Intisar. You should start your travel in an hour. This is an excellent job. Finding the runaway bride quickly will pay you lots of money for it. Listen, Mr. Abu Shakura, there should be no police interference. Also, no harm should be done to the kidnapped girl. Now it's 9:20 p.m. So, I want to see you with the bride Intisar in Kassala City in 4 hours. Goodbye and see you there. Mustafa has to call the new leader 3 times to postpone his trip to Kassala City due to unnecessary delays caused by Hassan and his father's secretary Mr. Fada. At 1:40 in the middle of the night, Intisar's so-called legal husband was finally ready to make his trip to Kassala to spend his honeymoon with his kidnapped bride. By 2:10 p.m., Hassan, Mustafa, and the man of wonders, Fada Karar, left the food huts on the Gadaref highway and headed towards Kassala. Mustafa drives his own brand new car, while the groom, Hassan, sits next to him in the front seat. Wonder Man Fada was wedged in the back seat between 2 large suitcases. Once the car was out of town at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour, the merry trio decided to celebrate their victory. Celebration in the form of drinking alcohol and singing in the car. Fada is the cupbearer and lead singer. He began pouring and distributing the liquor they had bought at a cheap illegal secret bar on their way out of town at the Toawa Mountain refugee camp. After half an hour of crazy driving, the party started with some cliched songs. Wonder Man's maniacal obsession with women is fueled by his drinking, and he begins to make up some dirty jokes. In his jokes, he suggested sharing the kidnapped bride's virgin pussy between the 3. Hassan and Mustafa scolded him for suggesting such an immoral idea. The eldest son of the imprisoned old man then began to encourage the groom Hassan with many words about how he should act when he is with his rebellious bride Intisar. He must be harsh and violent with her. He tells him that he has to break her arrogance and take revenge on her for abandoning him and going for a rich boy. The Wonder Man also told the groom that the only way to make a woman respect him was to have sex with her against her wishes. Mustafa agreed with Fada. Then the rich son of the old man took the example of his third wife, Aziza. Mustafa said that she had been in love with her lover for many years and therefore refused to marry him. Her father forced her to marry him because her lover is from a poor family and he is the son of the richest man in the city. On the first night of their wedding, his legal Muslim bride Aziz told him that she would kill him and then kill herself if he dared to have sex with her virgin pussy and rob her virginity against her wish. The rich eldest son of the wealth business tycoon Syed Osman Al-Tayyib related as a lawful Muslim groom how he struggled with his Nashi's third Muslim wife who was his only disobedient bride for 3 nights until he finally broke her pride and arrogance and forced her to submit to him and fucked her and violently robbed her virginity. To him from that day until today, she became a submissive Muslim wife. When Mustafa finished recounting his adventure with his third wife, the man of wonders, Fada Karar, said he remembered his late womanizer father telling him that all women can be classified into 3 categories: the goat-like woman, the horse-like woman or the mare, and the wolf-like woman. The goat woman is submissive, and therefore it is easy to have sex with her from the first wedding night. The bride horse is rebellious and needs 3 or 4 days to tame her before the groom can enjoy sex with her. During those days she will kick and bite and do many other acts of violence to keep her bridegroom away from her body. The mare bride resists her groom and shows such tough resistance because she is in love with another young man and therefore believes that her lover is the only one who has the right to have sex with her virgin pussy and take away her virginity. Mustafa's third Muslim wife is a good example of a horse bride. Even Hassan's bride, the fugitive wife Intisar, falls into this category of disobedient women. She rebelled against her legal husband Hassan and ran away from him because she loved the rich and handsome son Sami. However, the werewolf-like bride is extremely difficult to deal with. She starts out like a goat woman or a meek lamb, but soon turns into a rambunctious mare, or, more accurately, a lioness woman. She is like a witch bitch who can she shapeshift into a werewolf woman into the crescent completes 14 nights and becomes a full moon. The problem of the wolf woman is that she has a very strong and unbridled sexual desire. One man never satisfies her. That's why she is always looking for more sex outside the marriage bond. Once she seduces one man, she no longer enjoys sex with him and looks for another guy to fuck her with his big dick in her untamed pussy. In the end, either her husband kills her in an honor killing or she runs away from home and ends up in a brothel. When she becomes a prostitute, she turns into a whore who has become a common property for sale to all men. Then she gets complete sexual satisfaction when she gets fucked by more than 20 men daily. In this slutty way she settles because she gets what she wants. She is not ready to settle down with one man as an obedient wife because she wants to be a woman to many men. In fact, she is like a she-male or a tomboy, which is why she likes to have sex with many men every day. We stupid men go to her brothel and fuck her big pussy and pay her pimp to have sex with her. We give her as much fucking as she wants and also pay her money to try to satisfy her insatiable lust. But she is supposed to pay us money to give her enough sexual gratification and make her happy. None of us foolish men who come to her in the slut house will ask why the hooker gets paid to fuck her and why she doesn't pay the man who fucks her. Sex is a common interest and benefit for both sexual partners. During sex in bed, both the male and the female get sexual pleasure when the man's cock semen flies into the woman's pussy and she in turn gets an orgasm. If both of them get sexual pleasure and satisfaction, why one pays the financial reward for his sex partner? Even the Holy Quran says that the adulterous man and the adulterous woman must each be flogged with 100 lashes, and let no pity be taken for them. This punishment of Allah is based on the fact that both adulterers get the same pleasure from immoral sexual intercourse. For this reason, both the chief adulterer, Mr. Majub al-Hilali, who is now imprisoned in a jail in the city of Khartoum, and the pretty adulterous woman, Mrs. Raja Shukr Allah, the wife of the soldier Abbas, will be stoned to death for committing adultery together, while both of them have another spouse and other life partner. This is why I believe that women are demons that God created for us men to make us fall into the sin of adultery and punishes us for it. But we men as male demons love to fuck those beautiful female goblins. See how Hassan goes crazy after the pretty Jinnah Intisar, and Sammy disobeyed his father and sent him behind bars because of the same beautiful Ifrit girl. When the notorious womanizer the Man of Wonders expressed his low opinion of women, the other two drunks laughed until tears fell from their red eyes and their dirty saliva ran from their contemptible mouths. The driver Mustafa nearly drives his new mini car under a big truck, but in a split second he manages to avoid the imminent fatal crash. If his small vehicle had driven under that big truck, the three evil men would have been celebrating their joint honeymoon in hell instead of in a hotel. Anyway, the rich eldest son's private car arrived at the African Hotel in Kassala City at 5:30 a.m. By then the three evil conspirators had become drunk. Of the three, Hassan is the most drunk. Wherefore, Mustafa and Fada had to drag him from the car to the reception hall. So, they have to carry his liquor-drenched body and stretch it out onto the sofa. As soon as they let go of his hands and legs, the alleged groom of the fugitive bride Intisar fell to the ground like trash of rotten meat dumped inside a garbage container. His mouth began to throw up some of the large quantity of liquor he consumed on the highway. The dirty, dead-drunk man even peed inside his clothes. Therefore, his filthy body was wrecking a foul odor of alcohol, sweat, urine, and vomit. After that, Mustafa reserved a large room for the groom, Hassan, his bodyguard, Fada, and the kidnapped bride, Intisar. And he booked a small room for himself. With the help of Fada and two hotel workers, the so-called groom of the alleged disobedient bride was taken to his room. Then the notorious womanizer, Fada, hid inside the bathroom. After that, Mustafa returned to the hotel lobby to wait for the new spy leader, Abu Shakura, and his three men to bring the beautiful, kidnapped bride Intisar to her drunken groom, Hassan, to consummate his marriage with her. The Muslim husband was ordered by the despicable old man that by hook or by crook, he must insert his large cock into the circumcised virgin pussy of his disobedient Muslim wife, break her hymen, and fly his semen into her womb, and make her pregnant with his first child. Therefore, the conspirators believe that the legal Muslim husband Hassan, when he has sex with Intisar, will break her resistance, remove her rebellion, erase her arrogance, and make her always a submissive Muslim wife to him. Then the husband and wife could have sons and daughters and live together happily ever after. The new leader of the spies, Abu Shakura Wad al-Kalb, on the orders of the eldest son, Mustafa, left with his men the city of Gadarif at 3:10 in the morning. His car never stopped on the highway. He's driving crazy fast. In order to stay awake, he preferred to smoke banjo. From the time the car left Mount Toa, the four thugs lit their bango cigarettes. And everyone smokes. In less than half an hour of driving, the eyes of the four criminals turned red and became very small due to the massive amount of strong Sudanese marijuana they had inhaled. Their heads are filled with images of fantasy of sexy young women. Therefore, they started singing, laughing, and screaming the whole way. Each spy began to sing his favorite vulgar song. All four thugs are singing their songs differently and in dirty language and at the same time hearing each other. And the special car flies along the highway at a mad speed. Abu Shakura, the son of a dog, was able to reach the city of Kassala in less than 3 hours. This crazy speed might have been a record if he had not been under the influence of drugs. Anyway, at 5:25 a.m. the new gang leader stopped to be checked by the Kassala Highway Police. The scan usually won't take more than a few minutes. Oftentimes, the policemen don't even bother to get out of their office, especially when it's such an early hour in the morning. They will just wave their hands for the car to move forward. In most cases, the police fall asleep when the car leaves the highway and enters the city street. In addition, most policemen do not know what to check. They will come up and look at the driver's face and tell him to go ahead. That morning, the policeman came out of his office and walked slowly towards the car. When he reached the vehicle, he switched on the bright light of his battery flashlight and focused it on the driver's face. He saw nothing to draw his attention to the driver. In fact, he regretted coming out of his office and seeing such an ugly face, which would be a sign of bad omen for his new day. Wherefore, he raised his right hand as he was about to wave the car to move forward. But suddenly a strange thought entered his sleepy head, and he fell to it. How could such an ugly-looking black man drive such an expensive private car? He would be content with any explanation if among the other three men he could see any rich man. The other three ugly faces confirmed his suspicions that the car might be a stolen vehicle. He saw very clearly that it was written in big letters on their frightened-looking faces that they were frauds and criminals. Therefore, the policeman leaned forward and asked the driver for his driver's license and vehicle registration papers. Abu Shakura pretended to look in his pocket for his license. Then the policeman discovered the car's papers pinned to a panel on the outside. He focused the light of his flashlight on them and read what is written in them. He understood that the car belonged to a man named Ismail Abdul Mohsen Shaker, a resident of Wadi Madani city. Then he asked the driver to get out of the car and prove his identity. But the thief criminal Abu Shakura remained sitting inside the car. The policeman shouted loudly at him and ordered him to quickly get out of the car. The new gang leader knew that if he didn't act quickly, the other policemen would come out of their office with their weapons and stop him from escaping. So, he raised his right hand, which was holding a jack-o'-lantern, and brought it down with all his might on the policeman's face. The blow is so strong that the policeman was literally airlifted, flew for some time, and landed 2 meters from the car. Even if he was slapped by a rampaging lion with his hand, his body would not fly through the air and fall that far. Immediately, the driver took his foot off the brake, put it on the accelerator pedal, and pressed it hard. The engine roared before the car exited the Kassala police inspection office like a surface-to-surface missile and headed towards the city. When the other policemen saw what had happened to their colleague, they ran out of their office with their guns ready to fire. Unfortunately, by then the stolen car was out of their reach and line of fire. Instead of shooting in the air and squandering the ammunition, they ran towards their fellow policeman who was assaulted by the perpetrator and fell to the ground, dead or unconscious. 2 of them took his body back to their office. The third policeman picked up the phone and summoned the Gash River Bridge Police and informed them of the violating vehicle. While Kobri Al-Kash River policeman was receiving the details of the terrible accident, he saw Abu Shakura's car passing his office at the speed of light. He left the phone receiver and ran out to intercept the offending car. He too was too late, and yet he jumped on his motorbike and followed behind the fleeing car. 2 other policemen came after him and got into their car and followed behind. At that early hour, the streets of Kassala city were empty of any traffic. The 2 cars and the motorbike are flying at crazy speed. If any creature, whether human or animal, happens to go out in the streets, the stolen car, motorcycle, and other police car will crash into it at the same time. Fortunately, no such fatal accident occurred. The cops are very angry and every one of them has decided to either kill the criminal culprits or kill himself, but he will not allow any chance to escape. The policeman on the motorcycle arrived just in time and saw the offending vehicle as it exited the main street and headed in the direction of the main market. When he reached the end of the narrow lane, he could no longer see the car. Keep driving fast on the empty road. He hears his colleague's other police car coming up behind him at the speed of light. He knows that if he doesn't quickly move his motorbike out of the way, the other police car will crash into it and kill him horribly. So, he got out of the way quickly and then hit the brake at the same time. His motorcycle spun in circles 4 times before tossing him into the air and dropping him upside down 10 meters away. He felt lucky enough to escape being killed by friendly fire shooting of the other 2 cops' car. The tires of the speeding police car passed a few centimeters near in front of his slumped body like a ground-to-ground fire missile and stopped about 2 blocks away from him. The 2 policemen then jumped out of their car and lunged at their fallen colleague. Instead of helping him to his feet, one of them shouted at him angrily, "Where's the bastard driver? The damned son of shame?" "He ran away from me, sir." The third policeman said angrily, "You mean to tell me that the ground opened and swallowed him with his car and those with him?" "Honorable officer, Janabo, I think the car and those in it will be hiding somewhere in this area." "What about the big hotel?" the third policeman asked. "Yes, I think," the second policeman said, "that is the only place anyone could think of going at this early hour of the morning." After that, the three angry policemen decided to walk to Hotel Africa. The famous Africa Hotel is a 5-minute walk from where they left their car and motorbike. As soon as they entered the lane leading to the hotel, they saw the fleeing car and 2 men carrying a folded prayer rug from outside it. The other 2 men got out of the car and followed behind. The 3 policemen immediately ran towards them and ordered them to turn themselves in. The 4 men refused to give up and rushed inside the hotel. When the policemen reached the entrance of the hotel, they saw another man joining the 4 fleeing men. They are running at full speed up the stairs leading to the upper floor. "Stop there," one of the 3 policemen shouted. "Surrender and raise your hands." As he shouted these threatening words, he was pointing his gun at the 5 fleeing men. The other 2 policemen also pointed their guns at them. Mustafa is the first to stop and turn around. He raised his hands and looked behind him. Abu Shakura is at the other end of the group. He knew he had 0 chance of escaping. So, he put his hands on his head and confronted the armed policeman. The other 3 criminals also turned themselves in. The folded carpet fell out of their hands and rolled by itself. The 5 criminals were then ordered to walk to one corner and told to get on their knees and keep their hands on their heads. "Each of you should turn towards the wall and put your hands on your head. Any more movement and I'll shoot you in the head." "Policeman Taha, go and open the folded prayer rug. Be careful when opening it." Then the policeman Taha walked over to the folded small carpet and touched it with his trembling hands. Then he said with stuttering words, there was a dead corpse inside. "Open it and remove the murdered body from it. Prayer rug. Be careful when opening it." With a heart full of terror and his hesitating stance and trembling hands, the cop Taha untied the rope. All eyes open wide to see the dead corpse. There are only 2 reception girls and 1 security guard in the hotel lobby. The hotel guard has a stick in his hand and has no firearm. The 3 employees are afraid of being accidentally shot and killed by the angry cops. They watch with horror in their hearts the heinous crime that has been discovered in their hotel. Then the policeman, Taha, slowly and fearfully began to remove the dead body. First came the legs, then the stomach and hands. Finally, the face of a beautiful young girl appeared. Her eyes are wide open. Her mouth is fretted with a large turban. "She is not dead. She's alive," shouted the policeman Taha. The second police officer told him that they probably kidnapped her to be raped by someone in this hotel. "Remove the turban from her face and mouth and let the kidnapped girl speak for herself," shouted the police chief in charge known as Sergeant Issa Musa. As soon as the policeman opened the long turban from her mouth, the first innocent girl, Mona, exploded in a very loud scream, which woke all the hotel guests and also brought many neighbors to the lobby. Her screams are stronger and more violent than the screams of the teenage girl Shaza, who saw Intisar lying on the grave of her late sister, Firdos, and thought that she was a zombie or a goblin standing among the dead. Mona was forced by the 4 spies who kidnapped her to hide her screams all night long as a result of the long turban that was wrapped around her mouth, face, head, and hair and held her screams for help. Even the evil Alwash's gang members who kidnapped and raped her before did not hold back her voice and lock herself up in such an inhuman and deadly way that almost took her life. It was nothing but a divine miracle that managed to keep her alive all the way from Gaddarif to Kassala. In less than 10 minutes, the vast hall of the hotel lobby was filled with many people among the guests and neighbors. With great difficulty, the 3 policemen managed to calm the terrified kidnapped girl and reassure her that she was safe and that she had nothing to fear. On the morning of that day, the criminals, the 4 spies, and the eldest son, Mustafa, of the imprisoned snake, Shaitan al-Taib, who ordered his new gang to kidnap and rape the disobedient and fleeing wife, the 3rd innocent girl, Intisar, were arrested and taken to police custody in Kassala city for further interrogation. The first innocent girl, Mona, was taken to the police headquarters. After taking her statement, she was sent to her city Al-Gaddarif by police car. In the car with her, 3 policewomen, armed to the teeth, and 1 policeman, guarded her. The man is the driver of the police van. Yet Hassan, the alleged husband of the so-called disobedient wife Intisar, and selfish rejected lover and cowardly man escaped mass arrest. Even his bodyguard, who was supposed to protect him from being killed by his alleged disobedient bride, on their first wedding night, the man of wonders, Fatih, also escaped from being arrested and dragged to police custody. Their heavy consumption of alcohol during the night caused them to hibernate like winter brutes until midday on the following day. When they get over the influence of the local liquor they consumed on the highway, they are baffled by the mysterious disappearance of Mustafa and the unnecessary delay of the 4 kidnappers of the pretty bride Intisar. They do not know what happened to their fellow criminals until they return to Gedaref city after 24 hours of waiting at the African hotel. With a sad face, the evil old man told them that the Kassala prison police department had contacted him through phone and informed him that his son Mustafa had been arrested at the African hotel on charges of kidnapping an innocent girl by the name of Mona Salah Eldin Hashim. They said his apprehended son has given them his cell phone number and requested them to contact his wealthy father and inform him about the serious charge that has been laid upon him. According to the charge, Mustafa Osman Al-Tayyib hired a notorious criminal named Abu Shakura Wad Al-Kalb and ordered him to kidnap a beautiful girl named Mona Salah Aldin Hashim from the city of Gedaref and bring her to him at the Africa Hotel in Kassala City. According to police investigations, she is the same innocent girl who was kidnapped by Al-Wash and his 5 men and brutally gang-raped by all of them. The police report stated that the rich man, Mustafa, had deceived Abu Shakura and his 3 gangsters by falsely claiming that the girl was his legal Muslim bride. She absconded with her secret lover on his first wedding night before he could consummate with her his halal Islamic marriage with her. When the old man finished recounting the serious accusation that had been brought against his eldest son, Mustafa, he began to weep bitterly. Then he suddenly stopped crying and looked with a demonic face, and in indescribable rage he roared like a wolf or a hyena or a fearsome ogre, and said to Hassan, "I will never accept defeat. I want you and the other 3 spies to dig up the earth and exhume up that damned bitch out of her grave. Because of that bad girl, Intisar, I lost many of my dear ones. My beloved son, Mustafa, and my 2 close friends, Haj Muhammad and Mr. Majub al-Halali, are all now behind bars because of her. I, too, was imprisoned in this fucking prison and filthy hospital because of that poor whore and dirty bitch. However, I will never give up until I find her and make her life a living hell. Moreover, I will take revenge on my bad son Sammy and his evil friend Salah." After the dangerous old man renewed his vow to take revenge on his evil son Sammy, his cursed girlfriend Intisar, and his cunning friend, the recognized Sudanese lawyer Salah, he sent this so-called legal husband to the rebellious and fugitive wife. He gave him his full permission and blessings. Before sending him, he wrote a check for a large sum of money in his name and gave it to him. Then he ordered him to use the money to search for his disobedient wife, Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. He sternly warned him in no uncertain terms that he should never show him face again without his lawful Muslim wife, Intisar, who must be pregnant with his baby inside her womb. Chapter 56. The trial of the first gang that kidnapped and raped the first innocent girl. The second kidnapping of the first innocent girl, Mona Salah Eldin Hashim, at the hands of Abu Shakura and his gang prompted the people of the city of Gedaref to put pressure on the police and the criminal court to expedite the trial of the criminals who kidnapped and raped her. For 3 days the police tried to discover any connection between the first and second kidnappings of the innocent girl. After harsh interrogations and thorough investigations by ruthless interrogators, the police accepted the fact that it was the fault of the gang leader, Abu Shakura, that led to the kidnapping of the innocent girl Mona again. Therefore, the 2 kidnappings were considered separate crimes, and the perpetrators should be tried on different days. The investigations also shed light on the case of the so-called disobedient runaway Muslim wife, Intisar. Despite this, neither the public nor the police sympathized with her case. Everyone considered her to be a disobedient, rebellious, and immoral Muslim wife. That is why everyone thinks that she should be arrested and forced by the police to submit to the authority of her lawful husband, Hassan. Moreover, They considered her friendship with the rich boy, Sammy, a form of adultery disguised as forbidden love between a man and a woman before marriage, which was socially and religiously unacceptable. The final trial of the ringleader Alwash and his 5 gangsters is scheduled to take place on Friday morning at 10 a.m. There was no day in the history of the city of Gedaref when such a large crowd of people gathered to witness the trial as on that historic day. Such a huge crowd did not happen to gather even when the spring of water that became known as Faki Abu Nafora showed many signs, wonders, and miracles by opening the eyes of the blind and making the lame walk and the deaf hear. Even dead corpses of humans, men and women, and carcasses of domestic animals and livestock come to life. At that time, many people came from every city and village in Sudan to receive healing and miraculous treatment and witness such a wonderful wonder of nature. If everyone who visited that site from the divine fountain or the water spring were counted, the Faki Abu Nafora or the witch doctor of fountain would not have achieved half the number that gathered to witness the trial of the 6 criminals who kidnapped and raped the first innocent girl Mona. Starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, the criminal courtroom began to fill with people. At 8:30 a.m., there was no longer room for latecomers to enter the criminal courtroom. The streets around the courthouse are also crowded with people. Some of them climbed tall trees. Others climbed over nearby buildings, while the most fortunate people sat on the walls of the courtyard. It was announced that the opening of the spacious courtroom to receive people at 6 a.m. Since the court security guards estimated that the number of people exceeded the possible number that the hall could accommodate, it was announced that the people present would have to stand in line. Once the hall is filled to capacity, the rest of the queue will be eliminated. The first 5 rows are reserved for senior officials of the government and dignitaries in the community. Under the VIP category come businessmen, politicians, senior government officials, and religious leaders. While university professors, school teachers, school students, workers, soldiers, lawyers, judges, doctors, nurses, engineers, and university graduates were forced to stand shoulder to shoulder with street cleaners, beggars, homeless people, hustlers, pimps, prostitutes, thugs, sodomites, lesbians, thieves, murderers, and the like. The courtroom has 4 entrances. The first is reserved for dignitaries, the second for the judge and jury, the third for the defendants and guards, and the fourth for the public. Only the 4th door will open at 6 a.m. for the crowd to enter. The other 3 doors will open at 9 a.m. Since there was still plenty of time left for the public door to open, we should spend this time glancing at the crowd. In the long line, there are all kinds of people. Let's just choose some of the associations and organizations that gathered to witness the trial of Alwash and his gang. There is the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim Sisters Association, the Women's Union, the Women's Rights Association, the Women's Protection Association, and the Wild Girls Association. This group was founded recently by some atheists, communists, and feminists. It consists of city prostitutes and lesbians. Each of these groups carries a large banner. On each banner was written in large letters a reminder to the judge and jury of what the brutal ringleader and his gang deserve as punishment for their heinous crimes against the innocent girl. To mention what is written on each banner, we can list them in order of seriousness. Women's Union. Send the beast man Alwash and his gang to the gallows. Women's Rights Association. We want the same rights and equality as men. Women's Protection Association. Destroy those human beasts among the males. Muslim Sisters Association. You must cover your women with abayas, veils, niqabs, or burqas, and circumcise and genitally mutilate the private parts of your small Muslim daughters. Muslim Brotherhood. Death to Israel and America, and long live Islam. The criminal court differs from the Sharia court in beauty, security, legitimacy, and fairness. The secular courtroom is 10 times larger than the area of the Islamic court. Normally 10 people can sit comfortably on one long bench, but that day 25 to 30 people were stuffed painfully as if they were canned sardines. Most people put their little ones on their lap. There is no such thing as child abuse in the third world. Parents can do whatever they like with their young children, sons, and daughters. They can beat their children day and night, and no one will take them away from them. You can even beat and flog your bad son, rebellious wife, or immoral daughter in broad daylight and on the public street, and no one dares to stop you or report you to the police. You can even whip them with a stick or a whip, and no one will dare to hinder you in correcting your disobedient wife, dissolute daughter, or other bad members of your offspring. In fact, people will praise you and encourage you to discipline your wife, sister, son, or daughter. Police officers, security guards, and government agents are everywhere. All of them are in uniforms except for the government agents who wear civilian clothes to disguise their identities as spies for the ruling power. Some of these spies stand in line, some sit on benches inside the auditorium, and some climb on walls and trees. They are engaged in talking to the people and trying to find out who dares to speak out against the government. Wherefore, when the trial ends, not only will Alwash and his gang be found guilty, but many innocent people will also go behind bars. At 9:30 a.m., there was a sudden silence in the packed hall. All faces turned towards the VIP door. The great and powerful of society, due to wealth, corruption, exploitation, politics, and religion, began to enter one after another. They are well-dressed, look healthy, wealthy, and proud. They sat comfortably 5 on each bench. Those who were so many wronged by these dignitaries wished in their hearts that the judge would pass the death sentence on them as well. They not only kidnapped and raped their daughters, exploited and enslaved their sons, but also sucked their blood by getting rich. Only a few people wished to one day rise in society to such high places and honorable positions. While the crowd of poor and wretched people look at the mighty and powerful with eyes full of hatred and envy, and important personalities look at them with eyes full of pride and arrogance, the third door opens. The upper and lower classes stopped confrontation and defiance, and their hatred turned into the entrance of criminals. First they saw 3 female guards enter with their guns in their hands. They are immediately followed by a pretty young girl. The girl entered with her head bowed and her eyes full of tears. 3 policewomen followed her. One of them directed her with her hand to her chair. The girl sat on her seat without raising her face. Then the audience saw another group of male guards walking back into the hall with their weapons, pointing out to some of the people who had yet to come. The 5 men of the Wash gang followed behind them. They are tied with chains, as if they were adorned with chains from top to bottom. They are followed by another group of male guards walking forward with automatic rifles ready to fire at a moment's notice. When the 5 gangsters sat in their cage, other criminals, men and women, continued to enter. They are the impudent singers, dancers, and celebrators who have been arrested by the police along with the gang. Every 2 prostitutes and every 2 homosexuals were chained together. Their faces are devoid of shame and guilt. Some of them chew gum and smile happily at the audience. Some brothel whores and prostitutes on the streets recognized their male clients who slept with them in brothels, and their backseats cars waved their hands at them. Adulterous men waved their hands to some prostitutes they knew. Then the male and female guards quickly pushed them to their designated seats. All those whore women and whore girls sat around the first innocent girl, Mona. She looks like a lotus flower that has grown among the mud and dirt. The crowd is looking forward to the appearance of the notorious criminal and the greatest rapist. His arrival was delayed beyond the expected time. People are worried. Some of them had already prepared some bad words to shout at him. Some decided to curse him. Others want to tell him what kind of punishment he deserves. Some of those who were bitter and hated him brought some things with them to throw at his face. Things like spoiled eggs, rotten tomatoes, potatoes, onions, and old shoes. The prison authority expected something like this to happen and therefore decided to bring him in only after the judge and jury entered the courtroom. Another suspect who is not directly involved in the crime of kidnapping and rape, but who is arrested on charge of bribery related to the same crime, was ordered to enter the courtroom after dancers, singers, sluts, and sodomites occupied their seats around the innocent girl. When the crowd saw him, they thought he was the goddamn gang leader Alwash. As a result, within a few minutes, the evil old man turned into a colorful moving column of rotten eggs and vegetables. The court clerk announced loudly that the judge and his jury would enter the courtroom in a few minutes. The loud noise caused by the attack of rotten vegetables and spoiled eggs on the evil old man, Mr. Osman al-Tayyib, died instantly. Everyone got to their feet, except for the miserable old man. His Majesty the judge entered, surrounded by 6 jurors and several security men. And while the people were looking on with great admiration at the judge and jury, another suspect was escorted into the hall through the criminal's entrance. He is surrounded by 7 heavily armed police guards. The man is bound with heavy iron handcuffs and shackles from head to toe. He walks with difficulty because of the heavy chains. This suspect was taken to the convict's cage where the 5 criminals and the despicable old man were seated. Once he was safely placed inside the iron cage, the guards left him and went to their seats. Unfortunately, the man in the strong chains found that there were only 6 seats and none of them were empty. He recognized his 5 gangsters, but was surprised to see the wretched old man taking his seat. He was alarmed by the intruder, and like a lion finding a wolf in his lair, slapped him from his seat. The evil old man fell upside down and slashed his face and injured his nose and lips. Then Alwash and Al-Qadi, the main judge, simultaneously took their seats. It took a long time for the fallen old man to come to his senses. Instead of standing on his feet, the evil old man preferred to sit on the hard floor. His eyes surveyed the audience, and when he saw the rich and great dignitaries, he remembered that he was once proud and arrogant like them, but life had taught him a hard lesson. He began to shed hot tears over his miserable condition. Then the court clerk stood between the judge and the audience and invited the prosecutor to come forward and read the charge sheet. Police Inspector Yasin came forward and started reading. Honorable Judge of the Criminal Court of Al-Gadarif City, the jury, and the esteemed court, I would like to present to you the case of the brutal crime committed by the notorious criminal Alwash and his gang against the innocent girl Mona Salah Eldin Hashim. The indictment was originally prepared by Police Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanain, who was primarily responsible for the case. However, due to his involvement in the bribery charge, he was dismissed and I took over the case. The 6 suspects in the Alwash's gang confessed to their involvement in the crime of kidnapping and rape. Through interrogations, the police were able to collect the following confessions of the 6 criminals. First confession. I, Osman Mahmoud Allah Jabu, aka Alwash, confess that I planned and participated in the crime of kidnapping and raping the innocent girl, Mona Salah Eldin Hashim. One day while I was driving, I saw a beautiful girl coming out of her school. She is the most beautiful and sexy girl I have ever seen among women. So, I stopped the car and asked her to sit in my lap so I could drive her home. The girl refused my invitation and continued walking along the path. I followed her until she got to her house. When she saw me sitting in my car and smiled at her, she entered her house and closed her door angrily in my face. I didn't take her unfriendly behavior to heart because I know that love between a man and a woman begins that way. The next day I came at the same time and waited for her to get out of her school. This time I brought her a gold chain as a gift. I knew that beautiful doves needed sugar water to tame them. As she approached my car, I got out and offered her my precious gift. The girl took the chain from my hand and threw it on the ground, stamped it with her shoe, then spat on my face and abused me with the most terrible words. After her angry reaction and spitting on my face, she described me as a despicable stalker, a dishonorable and ugly man who looks like a monkey and a pig, and she moved away from me. I was so insulted and humiliated by her rude behavior that I decided to kidnap her. I had sent to her one of my best companions, a handsome young man named Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. This beautiful young man is also known as the magician. His beauty is like the beauty of our master Joseph, the prophet of God who is the son of Jacob. My comrades called him the sorcerer because he has a strong masculine charm and unparalleled beauty among the sons of Adam and Eve, which makes every woman, a sexy pigeon, a beautiful chick, or even a guy fall madly in love with him at first sight. The messenger of my love, the handsome Omar, met the beautiful dove that had been stolen my heart at first sight, and I fell madly in love with her near her school, and he seduced her with his beautiful looks and sweet words of romance and persuaded her to sit in his car. After spending some time with her in sweet heart-to-heart talk, some hot kissing, passionate hugging, and other things that lovers do in love, the magician offered to drive her home. Sparrow Banana gladly accepted the offer. Instead of her home, she was kidnapped by the sorcerer Omar and brought to a house between a brothel and a tavern. The dove did not cry out for help or resistance because the handsome magician had sprinkled sleeping powder on her face and she fainted. When she regained consciousness, she found herself surrounded by 4 other guys, including the magician. After that, my 5 companions brought her to me. At first, the dove was not happy to see me. My comrades left us alone and walked out. The lovely sparrow recognized my face, and this made her madder. I asked her to marry me, but she refused. She wanted to go home, but I wouldn't let her. She tried to run away from me, but I caught her. As I held her in my arms, I felt an uncontrollable sexual desire for her sexy body. So, I had sex with her against her will. Then she told me, "You ruined my life." She further said that she would kill herself before her parents found out and killed her. I told her, "I will marry you and take you to another city where no one will know you." I suggested taking her to live with me in Port Sudan City. First, she refused my marriage proposal, but when I offered her some money and gold, she agreed to marry me. We made a big celebration and got married according to the will of God and the Sunnah of our Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and prayers of God be upon him. However, a neighbor thought it was an illegal marriage and alerted the police. This intruder, who revealed our secret marriage to the police, claimed to be a good citizen. On the second day, the policemen stormed the brothel house and arrested my legal bride, who married her in an Islamic, halal marriage, and my 5 companions. They also arrested many innocent people who attended the wedding and celebration. I received a warning message on my mobile phone about a police raid by one of my spies in the law enforcement force a few minutes before it happened. He called me and informed me that the police cars were approaching. I didn't have time to take my bride with me. I just jumped out the window and ran away. On the same day, I traveled by truck to the last city in eastern Sudan. A few days later, I was sold to the police by 2 of my best friends. Unfortunately, these 2 friends are the magician Omar and the hammer Shakash Wad al-Haram. Accordingly, I was arrested by the Port Sudan police and transferred by a police vehicle to Gaddarif prison. When Inspector Yassin finished reading Al-Washa's words, the audience began to protest against the confession. The judge has to hit his table with his fist several times to establish order and silence once again in the courtroom. When order and silence returned to the courtroom, Police Inspector Yassin began reading the words of the innocent girl. The second statement. I am Mona Salah Eldin Hashim, known as the innocent girl. Every day I walk from my house to my school. I usually crossed a single road that was a shortcut between my school and my house. Oftentimes I see cars parked in that lane. I don't really care for those cars. Once I looked in one of those cars and saw a boy and a girl sitting in it holding each other and doing some nasty things. After that day, when I see a car, I take it as a lover's vehicle and turn my face in the opposite direction. I do this because my mother and father told me that this kind of emotional relationship between a boy and a girl before marriage always leads to bad consequences for the girl and her family. Only bad girls would do such evil things and ruin their lives and bring shame to their families. One day I saw a small black car parked on that deserted road. As usual, I took it as a lover's car and passed it, turning my face in the opposite direction. Suddenly I felt some hands grab me from behind and close my mouth. They dragged me into their car. I saw some boys inside. Before I could do anything to scare them, to notice others, and to ask for help, the boys closed my mouth with long turban and tied my hands and feet with strong ropes. Then they forcibly inserted my bound body between the back seats. That done, they drove up and took me to a far place. Then they took me out of their car and dragged me into a desolate house. Inside that house I saw an ugly-looking man whom they introduced to me as their chief. I've never seen him before. They call him the Beast. As his name implies, he is a brutal man. That evil man subjected me to brutal rape. After repeatedly raping me, he allowed his 5 men who had kidnapped me to brutally gang rape me as well. The last thing I could remember of that fateful day before I lost consciousness was that my private parts and other parts of my body were bleeding profusely. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in the hospital. After reading the second statement, Inspector Yasin waited for some time for the crowd to wipe away their tears and remove their anger at Alwash and his gang members before he could read the next confession. It was a long wait because the audience kept cursing and insulting the 6 criminals for a while. It was again the judge who restored order and silence in the courtroom when he repeatedly struck his gavel on his table. The third confession. I am Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, aka the Magician. I confess that Mr. Osman Mahmoud Allah Jabu, aka Alwash, the Beast Man, sent me along with 4 other boys to kidnap a beautiful teenage girl near her school. He gave us full descriptions of the girl he claimed he fell in love with at first sight. He drew up the kidnapping plan and provided us with a stolen car 4 days before the kidnapping took place. We parked on an empty pedestrian road not far from the school and waited for the pretty girl to appear. Then we caught her off guard and carried her to our ringleader. As soon as we brought her to him, the gang leader prepared for a wedding and summoned male singers and female dancers from Kassala City. On that day, the monster groom Alwash spent money lavishly on his wedding with his kidnapped bride. Then, with the blessings of God Almighty and his noble prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, the virtuous Maulana Abu Bakr Yasin, the imam of a mosque as a recognized Mazun, had performed the marriage of Osman Mahmoud Allah Jabo Alwash with the virgin girl, Mona Saluddin Hashim. On the same evening, the groom and his bride consummated their Islamic marriage and had halal sex together. When the groom became very drunk and sexually satisfied, he forced me and the other 4 boys to go to the bride and have sex with her. When I refused to enter the room of his bride and have sex with her, the beast Alwash threatened to kill me. On the following morning after the happy wedding, a traitor among the clients of the pimp of the brothel house, who is probably one of the prostitutes and drunkards, and claiming that his name is the Good Citizen, informed the police about the halal marriage. When the police raided the house, they beat us with batons and sticks and shot some innocent male and female singers and dancers who came from Kassala City. We later learned from the policeman that the leader of the gang, Mr. Allah Jabo Alwash, had escaped. Inside the police headquarters, we were severely beaten. 2 hours later, the police inspector, Hussein Hassan Hassanain, told me that I had been released on bail, which was paid by my honorable son-in-law, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, who had recently married my younger sister Firdos. Then I was taken to my home, and there I received good care and medical treatment from an excellent private doctor and 4 lovely nurses. A week later, a friend of mine called Shakash Wad al-Haram visited me. He is a messenger from our leader, the fugitive beast Alwash, and he brought me a letter from him asking for some money to help him escape from the country and smuggle himself into Egypt. I gave the hammer Shakash some hard currency and he left the same night. Then I learned through Police Inspector Hussein that Shakash was arrested as soon as he left my house. Through him, the police came to know Alwash's hideout and arrested him as well. A few days later, I was also arrested along with my younger sister's husband, Mr. Osman Al-Taib. After reading the entire confession of the magician Omar, the audience's reaction was not the same as before when Alwash's false confession was read. This time some of them got out of their seats and charged the 6 criminals and the despicable old man. They are determined to carry out vigilante justice on the 6 kidnappers and rapists inside the courtroom before the judge issues the death sentence on them. But the guards and some policemen intervened and saved the life of the criminals. It is a common occurrence in the courts in Sudan, India, and many other countries of the Third World from time to time that some criminals are killed inside the courtrooms at the hands of the angry crowd at them. Accordingly, the judge and jury decided to pacify the angry multitude of people inside the courtroom and thus called for an hour's recess. During intermission, the 6 criminals, the evil old man, the singers, and the dancers were removed from the courtroom. Only the first innocent girl was left sitting alone. Now Mona sits alone under hundreds of eyes. Although she wasn't looking at them, she could feel their eyes burning her face like flames of fire. Their shrill words like the tongues of angry beasts passed through her ears and entered her body, causing excruciating pain to her old wounds. She knows that everyone in the courtroom blames her for her kidnapping and rape. Her cousin Kamal, who was engaged to him before she was kidnapped and raped, called off their engagement after spreading bad rumors about her. He blamed her for her kidnapping. He told his relatives, neighbors, and friends that his fiancée, Mona, accepted the kidnappers' offer when they offered to transfer her from school to her home. She got into their car willingly. If she was a girl as morally good and innocent as she later claimed, she should not have consented to entering the car of strangers. After these false rumors spread about her everywhere in the city, especially from her cousin and fiancé, everyone thought that Mona was a really bad girl and that she could go with any rich boy who asked to drive her in his car. Unfortunately, her rape for the second time at the hands of the evil sorcerer, Hajj Muhammad, who also received a lot of publicity through the police and local newspapers, reinforced the above belief and increased the pain and suffering of the first innocent girl, Mona, who was subjected to horrible abuse. In addition to all this, her second kidnapping by Abu Shakura and his gang is the final nail in her coffin, removing any doubts about her innocence. Therefore, the phrase innocent girl is just an empty phrase that does not make sense to many people. They say it with their lips, but in their minds they firmly believe that she must be blamed for all the evils that have happened to her. They would rather wish she die by suicide than live with such disgrace. They will crown her with the really innocent girl title of honor if she kills herself by drinking poison or burns her body, which was defiled by 6 rapists. Or even if her father killed her in an honor killing to cleanse his family of shame. This too would be a great and honorable deed. These are the thoughts of the first innocent girl Mona and the audience on the last day of the trial. Some talkative women started spreading the rumor that the innocent girl was pregnant with an illegitimate child or unlawful love baby through one of her rapists. So, their angry men began to wonder what the fate of such an illegitimate child would be. And some enthusiastic young men swore to each other that if she were his sister, he would burn her alive and kill with her the child of the forbidden sex who was inside her womb. Only a few teenage girls shed hot tears over the innocent girl, Mona, because they know such a tragedy can happen to any girl their age. An hour later, the judge and the jury returned to the courtroom. Everyone got to their feet, except for Mona. 2 huge policewomen grabbed her shoulders and forced her to her feet. When the judge and jury took their seats, there was silence in the courtroom. You can hear the sounds of flies flying from the body of a man to the head of another woman, or the mouth of a boy or girl open to the nose of a sleeping old woman snoring. All the people sat silently as if they were in a mosque waiting for their imam to start the prayer, or at a funeral they wanted to bury the dead innocent girl who died socially out of the shame of her rape. After a few minutes of silence, the judge began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, for security reasons, this court has returned the brutal gang leader, his 5 gang members, and all other suspected singers and dancers to Gaddarif Central Prison. During the hour-long intermission, the jury and I met and discussed the serious charges. After a careful examination of the crime of kidnapping and rape committed against the innocent girl, Mona Salah Eldin Hashim, by Al-Wash and his gang, this court ruled that all suspects were guilty. On this basis, the court issued the following rulings on all suspects. Osman Mahmoud Allah Jabu, nicknamed Al-Wash, was sentenced to 14 years in prison with hard labor. Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, nicknamed the Magician, was sentenced to 14 years in prison with hard labor, in addition to 2 years for escaping from prison through bribery. The other 4 rapist criminals were sentenced to 14 years imprisonment with hard labor. All singers and dancers who came from the city of Kassala were sentenced to 4 years in prison each. Police Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanain was sentenced to 6 months in prison and is to be expelled from the police force forever. Mr. Osman Al-Taib was sentenced to 6 months in prison and the government confiscated the money he paid as a bribe to former Police Inspector Hussein. These funds are added to the government treasury for the benefit of the public. The good citizen Walid Hamza, who directed the police authority to the crime scene and also exposed the crime of bribery and helped the police in arresting the fugitive magician known as Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, should be rewarded by the government with an amount of 5 billion Sudanese pounds. The trial is over. The deputy police officer, Inspector Yasin Younes, shouted. The crowd of people had already become extremely angry at the court protection given to the brutal ringleader and his gang. When they learned that the gang members were sent back to prison for security reasons, they felt very angry. They became even more angry when they understood that neither Alwash nor any of his 5 gang members had been sentenced to death. Once the judge issued his rulings, people got to their feet and started voicing their protests. Their protests soon turned into shouting. When their screams could not be heard, they began beating their hands on the benches, doors, and windows. The judge and jury were immediately surrounded by police. Under tight security, His Majesty the judge and the jury were able to leave the courtroom. Then the VIP door was opened and the policemen escorted the influential in the community to their cars one by one. By then the angry mob was out of control. Angry people began breaking windows and doors of the criminal courtroom, and some proceeded to attack police officers. Law enforcement officers initially attempted to control the angry mob with large police batons. When these bladed weapons proved ineffective, the police dispersed the angry mob with tear gas. On that day, had it not been for friends Scylla, Sammy, and Waleed, the first innocent girl, Mona, might have been attacked and gang-raped in broad daylight. She might have also been brutally murdered in an honor killing at the hands of some angry men. Once the trial was over, her 3 friends surrounded her and pulled her out of the courtroom. Then they stopped a taxi and drove her safely to her home. The criminal court and the government rewarded the good citizen Waleed Hamza for his heroic act by reporting the crime to the police. However, the first innocent girl, Mona, did not receive a single word of consolation from the judge. He did not even mention a word of pity to her while he was reading his judgments against her kidnappers and rapists. They should have given her at least part of the massive amount of bribe paid by the evil old man to the corrupt police officer in charge of the case to release the notorious criminal magician Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. The government took the bribe money from the bank account of the corrupt police inspector Hussein. Instead of compensating the first innocent girl, Mona Sula Eldin Hashim, for the heinous crime that was committed against her, depriving her of her virginity and desecrating her pure body, the government confiscated or rather stole a large sum of money. The large bribe paid by the evil old man to the corrupt police inspector was more than 300 billion Sudanese pounds. Chapter 57. Transfer of a convicted dangerous criminal. The evil old man became very pleased with the justice of the Gedaref City Criminal Court. He is the only defendant who felt he received less punishment than he deserved. He expected his sentence to be in years. He wouldn't be surprised if he learned later that his sentence was probably mistook by the judge from a 6-year to a 6 months. He became very happy that day when his friend Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk came and gave him the good news. He knows he has already spent 2 months in prison and only has 4 months left. The corrupt doctor who took a huge bribe assured him that he would make him spend those remaining 4 months in the hospital instead of in prison. However, the old man remembered his sworn enemies and decided to resume his plan of destroying them and separating Sammy from Intisar forever. Therefore, he asked his criminal friend, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, to bring to him the son of the imprisoned politician, the alleged husband of the so-called disobedient, runaway Muslim wife, Intisar. The religious leader left immediately and returned an hour later with Hassan Majub al-Hilali. "My beloved son Hassan," says the old man while his vile mouth foams and screams like an old hyena or an angry ogre, "I am a brave man who never accepts defeat. I will fight until the last moment of my life. I am like Satan, the damned devil, and I am the hard one, and I am the bad guy, the wicked sinner, the painful injection, and the son of a mad dog. I am the one who has risen from his grave as a zombie and the one who shape-shifted to a werewolf in the night of the full moon. I am the ghoul al-dodo, the boogeyman, and I am the ugly Grantina the hippopotamus. I am the red genie and the black Afrit. My motto is do it or die for it. The disobedient runaway girl Intisar is your lawful Muslim wife. Because of her we were humiliated and imprisoned. Your father, the great politician, Sayyid Majub al-Hilali, the mighty witch doctor Hajj Muhammad, the magician Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, my rich eldest son Mustafa, And I, as the greatest wealthy business tycoon in Sudan, have all of us gone down in prisons because of that poor and dirty whore Intisar. But let prison not stop us. Now it's your turn to fight for your lawful Muslim wife Intisar, whom you have bought with your money from her legal guardian brother Omar. This righteous Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk will be with you. The other 3 spies of Tia's gang will also be with you. I am with you with my money. From today, I entrust you with the responsibility of the research team. Look for her everywhere. Don't worry about the expenses. I will cover all costs. Go meet Chief Tia and his men and tell them to keep looking. Remember one important thing: when she is found, don't let them kidnap her. Let the police kidnap her and bring her to you through the verdict of obedience. Like the cops arrested my 4th Muslim wife and brought her to me, who was her damned sister Firdaus. Just show the police your halal marriage contract, the rule of obedience of the Sharia court, and her hiding place. I will follow your wise advice, Uncle Osman. Now listen to my plan and do it. It is as simple and easy as drinking water. Just follow my damn son Sammy wherever he goes. Don't waste your time and energy with his evil friend Sulla or other assholes. I repeat, your only target is Sammy. Wherever he goes, you go. Wherever he sleeps, you must sleep near that place. Watch him day and night. He is the only son of bitch who will lead you to your fucking Muslim wife. Do not let him continue to fuck her with his dirty cock in her filthy pussy, as if she is his lawful wife, until he makes her womb pregnant with Wad Haram or a son of adultery like him. I will follow your good advice and do what you asked me to do, Uncle Osman. If you do it, you will defeat your enemies and win your Muslim wife. Well, Uncle Osman, I will put your excellent plan into practice very soon. Now go and show yourself as a trustworthy man. I will never disappoint you, my dear uncle. I never want to see your face again without your pregnant wife Intisar. Okay, Uncle Osman. Go now, my dear son Hassan, says the hypocrite Imam Maulana, and God willing, the angels of the Most Merciful will go with you. When the newly appointed leader of the search team received the advice of his spiritual leaders, he left the hospital ward and went home. After that, the old man and Imam Maulana remained sitting in silence for a long time. Their minds are full of ideas. Their hearts are full of fears and doubts. A pretty young nurse broke their silence when she came in and handed a move notice to the sinister old man. The note reads as follows: from the Gaddarif Police Authority to the Gaddarif General Hospital staff. The convicted prisoner, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, must be notified that he will be transferred to Khobar Central Prison in the Triangle capital city of Sudan, Khartoum, tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. He is wanted to be referred for interrogation by the Khartoum police on charge of killing his 4th wife, Firdaus Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. As soon as the old convict read his deportation notice, he began to tremble with fear and panic like a hunchbacked 90-year-old Asian man. The old fox, the criminal rapist and murderer, almost forgot his involvement in another kidnapping and rape crime. The notice brought back to his mind the memory of the brutal rape and murder of the second innocent girl, Firdaus, again. Therefore, the old African jackal began to shake like a coward murderer. He also started to cry like someone who was sentenced to die in the gallows. All his happy moments due to his linnet sentence burned inside his corrupt mind and came out of his evil heart like thick black smoke. Have courage, Osman, says Maulana. By the will of God Almighty and thanks to his holy prophet Muhammad, they will prove your innocence again. Remember that no Muslim husband will be condemned for having halal sex with his lawful Muslim wife. You didn't rape her and you didn't kill her. That foolish girl killed herself. She refused to eat or drink and starved herself to death. Your lawyer, God willing, will prove to the criminal court in Khartoum city that your 4th wife, Firdaus, committed suicide. Oh, Honorable Maulana and our blessed Imam, I need a very good lawyer to save me from this crime. I am willing to pay any amount of money to be acquitted of that false accusation. That will be taken care of. Do not worry. I will personally go to Khartoum city and appoint a good lawyer for you. Relax and leave the rest to God Almighty and His infallible messenger Muhammad, and to me as the virtuous Imam of the largest house of God in the city. Maulana Mubarak, I put you in charge of this legal case and allow Hassan, Tia, and his spies to do the other work of looking for that dirty whore. I repeat, Our Eminence Imam, I swear by the Holy Quran before you and Allah and His Prophet, whatever money these two important missions may cost, I will gladly pay them, and also all the fees of those who undertake them, I will cover them. I am honored to do your work, my best friend, Mr. Osman Al-Taib. May God grant you success and bless your 4 wives and their offspring. Amen, Lord of the heavens and the earth. Amen, Lord of the worlds, the God of Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and Jacob. The next day, all 3 wives of the notorious polygamist, the lustful old man, the rapist and murderer of the late second innocent girl, Firdaus, gathered at the civil hospital. His sons, daughters, grandchildren, servants, maids, their neighbors, and guards came with them to see their mutual husband, father, and grandfather. They came 2 hours before the cold man was deported to the capital city. The imprisoned convict was informed by the hospital authority that a police car would arrive at 10:15 a.m. He must be ready and get into the carriage just in time, or the police will drag him like a notorious criminal and throw him into their carriage. So, he was advised to cooperate with the police authority as an obedient prisoner. The journey from Gadaref City to Khartoum City in a police car takes a full day and a full night. 24 hours is required if the police car is to run continuously without malfunction or delay. For an ordinary car, the trip will take no more than 5 to 6 hours at most. But as for the police van, because the driver and the car are as old as the old man himself, the journey can be expected to take this long. When the wealthy business tycoon learned of his means of transportation to the triangular capital city of Sudan, he wept bitterly. Because he remembered his previous trips to the capital city. He was always flying back and forth to Khartoum and other big cities in Sudan. He couldn't remember when he last traveled by car or train. He believes that he was born to fly from one city to another, from one country to another, and from one continent to another. He also remembers the beautiful days he spent in 5-star hotels in Arab and Western countries. Even in 5-star hotels, he never stayed in a standard room or deluxe room, but his dorm was always in beautiful deluxe rooms. But unfortunately, this time in Khartoum City, he will live in a dungeon or barracks full of crooked thugs and dangerous criminals. He has to deal with corrupt police guards and other criminal vigilantes who might beat him up if he doesn't pay them well. Anyway, at 9:30 in the morning, the 2 police guards watching over him were either bribed by his friend Maulana or moved to pity him, and thus allowed the convict old man to mingle and talk to his 3 families. He spent an hour in the hospital unchained, cuddling his grandson, kissing his granddaughter, scolding a daughter, yelling at one wife, and threatening another woman. The police car came as scheduled on time, but the convict was too busy to come in time. Accordingly, 2 angry policemen jumped out of their car and went to search for the convicted prisoner, Mr. Osman Al-Taib. It took them 10 minutes to locate him. When they reached him, they saw that one of his 3 wives was hugging him tightly. The old man is not happy to be embraced by her, but because of the relatives around him, he pretended to be sad because he would miss such a dear old wife. Yet the old wife is genuine in her affections. This sincerity of her affections moved the hearts of his 2 other wives with bitter jealousy. So, they wiped away their tears and went and assaulted the body of the commonly shared polygamous husband. While the 3 wives are embracing the old husband due to the competition of the rival wives, their legs are kicking like crazy cows the body of their polygamous co-husband, while their hands pushing and pinching each other's bodies. The old man's body began to struggle under the wives' grips. He wants to free himself before the rival women tear him in 2. As he fights for his life, 4 more hands join the group. Those new hands are trying to snatch him from the rival wives. The old man became a victim of 2 forces. Both powers claimed the right to his body. Corrective power and marital power. The old man's hands became like a rope in a competition pulled from 2 directions. Ultimately, with great difficulty, the male force overcame the female force. Then the 2 policemen took the old man to their car. Once the convict was thrown into the police wagon, the dangerous journey to Khartoum City began. It will be more difficult, miserable, and more dangerous than the journey of the witch doctor, Hajj Muhammad, from the village Dalsa to which he fled on foot with his 2 criminal friends, the imam of the largest mosque and the imprisoned politician, and then returned alone to the city of Gedaref. The old man's 3 competitive wives started crying and wailing and throwing dust on their heads. His daughters and granddaughters began to cry too, while his sons and grandsons and the Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk started shouting and sang in unison the prison for the brave men. With tears falling from his eyes, the old man waved his final farewell to his 3 families and to his spiritual leader and imam. The convicted old geezer does not know whether he will see his family members again or not. He is worried that he will be tried and convicted by the criminal court for the brutal rape and vicious murder of his late 4th wife Firdaus. Then he gets hanged to death in the gallows and descended to hell and be tormented forever by the devil with pitchfork in his hands. The old police van crawled for a few hours within the city before hitting the highway. When it crept for another 30 minutes on the highway, the car broke down. It took the cops 6 hours to get their slow beast engine running again. The old man lost his patience during the long hours of waiting. He shouted, threatened, and fought with the policemen. He did everything for them except beat up any one of them. Whenever he got into one of these fits of rage, the policemen brought him under control by slapping, kicking, and beating him. In this way, whenever the convict submitted, they let him go, and whenever he became violent, they calmed his tantrums with their clubs. The carriage began to crawl like an old tortoise down the highway. After many hours of silence, the old man fell asleep, and when he got up, he found the time in the middle of the night. He saw the 2 policemen asleep, except for the driver. The old man fell asleep again, and when he woke up he discovered that the sun was in the middle of the sky at noon. When he inquired as to where they had reached so far, they were told that they had reached the outskirts of the capital city of Sudan. They said they still had to travel a few hours within Khartoum city to reach their final destination. The old man suddenly became worried. His mind reminded him of his bitter experience with the ruthless police interrogators and vicious criminal bodyguards from the Coco Wad Satan gang when he entered Gedaref prison. He expected the ruthless prisoners of Khartoum jail to force him to choose between giving his money to their protection service or beating him day and night. He knows that the police investigators will leave him with no such choice. The old man concluded that he would be severely beaten by the interrogators if he denied his involvement in imprisoning, beating, raping, and killing his 4th wife, Firdaus. So, his mind is stuck between 2 horns of a difficult dilemma. While trying to figure out how to escape from such a dilemma, the slow police van finally reached Kobar Central Prison. Despite this, the prison gate was opened immediately to accept the convicted prisoner. The guards saw the convict's uniform and knew where he came from. The number of the convict and the name of the city and prison from which he was transferred were written on his prison uniform. Therefore, his prison uniform and number allowed him easy access to Kobar Central Prison. Therefore, the old man's prediction proved wrong. First of all, he was not sent to the confinement room or the dark interrogation room. Second, when other inmates saw him, they did not treat him as a suspect, but as a convicted prisoner and fellow jailbird. When the old man entered the prison, he found the suspects and convicts scattered everywhere, like a swarm of free birds, because it was a free time for rest. From 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. the prison inmates are released from their dorms and cells and allowed some freedom. However, no prisoner would dream of escaping from Kobar Central Prison. The inmates were closely guarded by both humans and animals. The animals are fierce police dogs and dangerous crocodiles. Every single one of those predatory dogs could eat a horse. Half of the prison walls are surrounded by a river inhabited by carnivorous crocodiles. If the prisoner miraculously managed to climb the high wall, he would fall into the water and be eaten alive by crocodiles. The other half of the prison walls are guarded by armed guards and sniffer dogs. Before facing the voracious animals, the prisoner must escape from the guards who watch the prison from inside and outside. Some of them will move up and down within the wall, and above them there will be others walking back and forth over the wall. So, if the prisoner can evade the bullets of the internal guards, he will not escape the machine guns of the snipers above the walls. The walls are built in such a way that not even insects can climb successfully. Besides, it was inserted by sharp metals, broken bottles, pointed irons, and very hard stones. In addition, it is very high. That is why until the time the evil old man entered the prison peacefully, it did not report that any prisoner missing or escaping from Khobar Central Jail. The prison was built a century ago by a British gentleman by the name of Mr. Cooper, and it is from him that the maximum security prison gets its infamous name. It is the place where many rival politicians and dangerous criminals were either hanged or starved to death. The famous Sudanese Islamic thinker, Mahmoud Mohammed Taha, was hanged in that notorious prison. It is more dangerous than the ghost houses established and allocated by the Islamic terrorist government to torture opponents of its oppressive rule. As soon as the despicable old man entered the prison, he was surprised to see two strange phenomena that he had not seen in Gaddarif Central Prison. In the first phenomenon, he saw some prisoners praying to Allah. In the second phenomenon, he observed a large crowd of prisoners gathered around someone who was giving them an intellectual lecture. The old man is not a devout Muslim or a good man, as he always falsely claims, and he rarely prays any prayer a day and never fasts in the month of Ramadan, so he preferred to join the large crowd. When he reached the great assembly, the old hyena recognized the lecturer. That prisoner is in the investigation crisis of adultery charge. He is a dark shadow or black version of his evil political friend, Mr. Majoub al-Hilali. The adulterous great politician seemed to the vile old man as if he had been starved, beaten, tortured, and did not sleep for several days. The convict, Mr. Osman al-Tayyib, started crying when he saw his evil friend in that miserable condition. When the speaker saw his former criminal friend and companion in the heinous crimes they had committed against the two wild sisters, Intisar and Firdaus, he stopped speaking and went to the despicable old man and embraced him and began to weep as well. The miserable state of the adulterous politician revealed to the imprisoned rich businessman what he might expect of what he would look like after a few months in such a dangerous and bottomless pit. If he can escape death and starvation by bribing criminal vigilantes with his vast fortune, he may turn into a walking and talking black ghost or human skeleton, just like his evil political friend.